All righty then. We need dancing girls.
She's ready to bum.
That's very dirty, Herman.
Drunk in the trunk. Ready to bum. That girl got drunk in the trunk. You know she's running for a mighty long time. She make her wanna be a lover. She's so fine.
So fine.
She make you break it high heel sneakers on. She's got a wig hat on too. She's got that look in her eye. She's got that little kangaroo now. She's got it in the trunk. And she's ready to bump. She's got that look in the trunk. And ready to bump. That girl's got drunk in the trunk. You know she's gonna love you for a mighty long time. Money maker, wanna be a lover, she's so fine. Don't break it down.
All right, I'm gonna fade us out before YouTube does something funky at the end here. Hi, Herman.
Hello, Vicki. How are you?
I'm so glad you're here, Herman. This was a long time coming. I've been asking you to do this, and you are a busy man.
Well, you know the deal. Got to keep it. Got to keep the bills paid. Got to keep it going. You know.
So how, Herman? Everybody out there is freaking out. I mean, everybody that's on the thread is saying, sending you up all kinds of love. You can't see all the stuff that you're getting here, but you're getting all kinds of love. Toby, Simon saying hi, and oh God, just all kinds of people that are on here just sending you love. And
that's so sweet. Yeah.
We'll go and we'll take some questions later. So, how busy are you keeping in COVID, Herman?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's basically our industry, the music industry, and many others are null and void now, and so I'm trying my best to do little things. Now, I am working with a group called Greg Adams and East Space Soul, and we do have sort of a house gathering of musicians, and we do a live Facebook thing every Friday around 5:30.
So now, how do you do that? Are you all in one location?
We're all in one location, and when everything had lifted is when we started doing it, and we're all 6 feet apart, and we're all wearing masks. But I don't know what we're going to do this Friday. So, but I mean, we are going to have it, but we're just trying not to everyone comes in one at a time, and everyone is, cleaning their hands and washing and doing all of that. But it's difficult,
Does it make you uncomfortable? Does it make you anxious to go, or?
It's just, I mean, it's just all these things that we have to do in order to be careful, I guess, and rightfully so. I do understand. I don't mind wearing a mask, if I'm going to, possibly save a life, so,
Right.
because no one really knows what this thing is all about, although they are working vigorously for, for a cure or for a vaccine, I should say. So I don't know.
So, okay, so I told you before we went on the air, Herman, that I have like the COVID crazies who watch the show every day, and we go through this whole disinfecting process when we get groceries, and that tapping is still there, and I can't figure out what it is. I'm trying to figure out a way to get that tapping to stop. We're not typing, people. I don't know what that is that's doing that.
Oh, wow.
I can't make it stop. But anyway, so do you go to grocery stores?
I do. I do. I have to. Now it's only my wife and I here in the house. It's just the two of us.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I do go to the market, and sometimes more than a couple of times within a 2 week, in a week, in a 14-day period, I should say that. But yes, I do, and before going in, I sanitize my hands, and I put gloves on, and I go in and I get what I need, and then I come out and put everything in the van, take the gloves off, once again sanitize, and when I get home, I do the thing of taking them out the bag and wiping things off and all of that. But and then the normal thing, even before this, of just washing the vegetables and doing things like that, So
because you eat a lot of fresh food. So
I do.
So now here's the thing, though. I got a delivery. I use Instacart or
Okay.
Whole Foods because I'm afraid to go into. I have underlying conditions and stuff. I'm kind of afraid to go to the market.
Of course, I hear you.
But do you wash lettuce before you put it away?
Not before I put it away.
Yeah.
I actually wash it before I eat it.
Right. That's what I do, because if you wash lettuce, it gets kind of ruined.
Correct. Correct. So before I eat it, I take off whatever I need, and then I'll I wash it, wipe it off, and do it, And that's a lot, because I eat a lot of lettuce, or actually I eat a lot of spinach. So,
okay. So we're already here. Let's talk about your diet for a minute. Your plating is magnificent.
Well, thank you.
It really is. So let's hear the theory behind the attractive meals.
Well, since I have to sort of eat a certain way, a lot of vegetables with some protein. My theory is, cooking it. If you make it look attractive, if you plate it well, then you'll want to eat it. And so, so I try to make my salad look as if Chef Ramsay is going to come and critique it. I try and plate my food in that way. I think that we all sort of, with our eyes, that's appetizing when you see something that's attractive.
Absolutely.
So if I'm eating spinach, and if I'm eating rabbit food, I want to make it look good, so I'll want to eat it.
So why did you choose keto? What?
Well, you know what? Literally, since the virus has kicked in, or since COVID, I needed something to jumpstart, and I hate to call it a diet, but I needed something to jumpstart this thing, because I guess a couple of years ago, I had dropped, about 85, 90 pounds.
How did you do that?
Well, just portions, smaller portions, and not eating late at night, and also watching when I eat. I'm not a big sugar guy. I had to stop eating chips. I mean, me being from the South, to eat a family bag of potato chips with hot sauce on it, I mean, dig this. I mean, comfort food for me was a bag of potato chips, hot sauce, and a 2-liter bottle of Dr. Pepper.
Oh, I'm
And
so with you.
I mean, come on, that was the shit. So I've had to really cut back on that. I've cut it out. Period.
Do you ever? I find that when I stop eating things, I kind of stop craving them. Do you not crave it as much anymore?
I don't crave it anymore. And even if I have a potato chip or two, I don't fall into that trap now.
Oh.
I don't. But once again, because of my love for food, I started, and my lack of exercise, I started gaining weight. I started putting on pounds again. And when this whole COVID thing started, I was eating crap. I mean, I was making making nachos at home and making them with tater tots as a, just my wife and I just kind of sort of said, okay, screw it, let's go for it.
Right.
And after a few weeks of that, I said, what am I doing? So once again, out with all the sugar. I picked keto because it had restrictions, and I guess the bottom line for keto is to eat a certain way so that you don't have to eat a lot.
Okay, so were you not hungry? Like, I've looked at your meals, and I know I saw recently that you said you had to add more protein because you weren't getting enough protein. So I saw the egg on the patty, and you eat nuts?
You know what? With keto, I'll eat pecans, but I can only eat, a certain amount of them. With the way I ate before, I ate a ton of nuts, and that did help. What helps the most, though, is that my last meal is at 7 p.m. 7:30 at the latest.
And then you eat nothing?
And I don't eat anything until 7 a.m. the next morning.
Okay, so now do you go to sleep early because you want to eat? How do you do that?
Well, also, too, after you eat that meal, you're not supposed to go to sleep until 3 hours later, which is easy for me. I mean, I'm a musician, so, when I was working out at, 5:30, 6 a.m., I would be in bed by 10.
Wow.
But, now that's not happening. My gym had closed. My gym is open now. But, you still have to be careful. It's not the same as it used to be.
They're closing them down again.
Yeah, it's not what it used to be.
And
so I don't have to be up early anymore. And my wife, who is a school teacher or assistant principal, she's not out the house by 7. Therefore, waking me up at 6.
Right.
So that doesn't. So I really have to be careful. And
so what do you do, Herman? What do you do if it's 9:30 at night and you're hungry?
You know what? I'll maybe, take one of those small Persian or mini cucumbers and slice it up because it's cold. It does have a crunch to it.
Right.
And I'll eat that.
Mm-hmm.
That along with a salsa water that's flavored with lemon or something like that. There you go.
Do you do hot tea? I find hot tea is helpful.
Yeah, I'm not, and it is. I'm not a lover of warm things. I don't drink coffee. I don't drink hot tea. The only time I will drink something that is hot is if I'm on my motorcycle, I'm riding up north and it's cold. I'll stop into a cafe, order some coffees just so I can wrap my hands around it.
It's your little heater, your little body heater.
Yeah.
So how COVID? So is your wife? How did your wife feel? Is she in LA Unified?
Yeah.
How does she feel about the back to school? So LA Unified, they're not going back to school. I assume she's happy about that.
She is happy about that. The other side or the downside on it is that with her having to really concentrate on the online schooling. Now, once again, she's an assistant principal.
Right.
So, the headaches of making sure that all the kids have tablets or a way to connect to the internet.
Right.
That's on the school, so it's, and then also too, they have to be up on that stuff. They have to have knowledge and it's somewhat difficult. The learning curve is is not instantaneous. She has to learn. So she's dealing with all of that. And she's also dealing with the parents who need help with that sort of thing as well. So
Right.
it's sort of the blind leading the blind to a certain degree. But
So how is it? How is it you two being together? So your son is up in San Francisco.
yes.
What is he doing during COVID?
Well, what is he doing? I'm hoping that he's being careful and
Yeah.
and with the other his 4 or 5 roommates that he's hanging out with, hopefully they're being careful. I did hear that one of them got tested and they came back negative. So, he feels better about that, or I feel better about that.
Right.
But he's a skateboarder and he's out there skating every day or whenever he can. And so, he's 20 years old.
Yeah.
And I can only tell him so much, and I'm 6 hours away, and there you have it.
And so for you and Hope, I'm alone. I've been alone for 4 months. I don't live with my boyfriend. I have only seen him in the park a couple of times, and I have full body plastic bag so that we can hug.
You have on a hazmat suit, right?
Yes, I basically have a hazmat suit. So the missing people, so you have your love there, but
I do. I do. Yeah.
Are you finding that it's bringing you guys closer? Is it stressful? Is it both? Is it?
Well, before the summer, when the school year was going on, literally my wife would, wake at 5:30, her alarm would go off.
Wow.
She would go and do her thing and you shower and get ready, and so that she can do exactly what we're doing here on Zoom. But she would go into her office, close the door at 8 a.m. and I wouldn't see her again until 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Wow.
So so that's kind of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the day we had together.
Right.
And then, of course, whenever I'm busy, I teach over at the Los Angeles College of Music, and I do the same thing.
You do it online?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Now I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I go to my office, and I'm there, and we're beating on desk and talking about music and all of that good stuff. So
how do you do it? You don't have a kid in your house, so how?
It's a lot of talking and a lot of video sharing and a lot of me explaining the Bible or the gospel of keeping it simple and playing good music. But I mean, once again, I have a lot of examples of people playing, a lot of examples of me playing, a lot of examples of our friend Leland Scalar playing, because I'm always preaching that you got to simplify your playing, you got to do this, that, and the other, and I give them an example of people who master that. And Leland is one of those guys who is one of the most musical individuals I know, but he does it in a way where he doesn't get in the way. So.
Right.
He's one of the examples that I use.
That's one. And so are you missing? You must be missing playing. I mean, I can't even imagine.
I miss playing a lot because, I didn't, not that I didn't realize that was a lot of what that was a whole part of me.
Right.
I'm a workaholic. I try and work as much as I can or play with as many different people as I can. And I'm always doing things, and it's with different kinds of music, whether it be with Teresa James and Rhythm Tramps, or whether it be with Greg Adams and East Bay Soul, or when I was out on the road with Tower of Power, and then turned around and started playing with Hugh Laurie or Timothy B. Schmidt of the Eagles. I mean, it's a lot of different things, but and I'm thankful that I'm able to cover that. But it's all music, and it's all it's all trying to be the best that you can be in the genre that you're in.
Okay, so let's talk about how the music got in you to begin with. So I know you're a Texas boy, and I know a bunch of our mutual friends. Did you know Terry Wilson back in Texas? Did that?
Terry Wilson and Tony Braunegal and also Willie Ornelas, they were all legends and heroes of my generation, if you will.
Right.
I had heard about, Tony I had heard about, Willie I heard about, Terry I heard about, because of their connection.
Right.
Willie Ornelas, I actually met because he would come back to visit his mom. And so he would come into the clubs that I was playing. And so I got a chance to meet him, know him, see his discography, if you will,
Right.
and learn about him. Tony, I only heard about because, my favorite artists were, Ricky Lee Jones, Bonnie Raitt, all the people that he had played with. And then, then the association with Terry, once again, I knew who he was because of Johnny Nash and all the people that he had worked with. Teresa, I knew before they got married.
Oh, stop.
I knew Teresa because she was one of my favorite singers. I played on, now you have to look at the two different sides, or the sides of the track, if you will.
Right.
I played in a hip top 40 band that played a lot of crossover jazz, a lot of Al Jarreau, George Benson, Manhattan Transfer, Steely Dan, that sort of thing. But all with kind of a dance groove, and we, and even with my own band back in Houston, we played a lot of British soul music.
Wow.
So Nick Kershaw was Go West. What's the other one? Living in a Box. That sort of thing. Level 42. That kind of stuff. And so I played in one particular club, and literally 2 blocks away, Teresa was playing in a bar. And I would go and check her out on our breaks. And she rocked my soul. It was just amazing what she did. So, and then I moved to Los Angeles in 88. I think they moved here in 86 or so, and met them in front of Willie Ornelas' house. And we started talking, only to find out that I was in love with her because of her music, and I was in love with him because he got the hell out of Texas when he did. So, so we, and then, eventually I became their drummer. So, and then the other weird thing is that when I met Tony Ronnigal out here, and also, hooked up with Willie, we all grew up within a 5-mile radius of in Houston.
And Snuffy was another Houston boy, right?
Well, Snuffy was a Texas guy. I don't know if he was from Houston or not, but Snuffy I knew about. But Snuffy was always, he made it out so long ago that, when 30 something came on and I saw his name, I went, wait a minute, I know who Snuffy Walden is. And that was sort of my reconnect with him. And then he used to come into the clubs and sit in with Terry and Teresa. And eventually he asked if I would be in his band. So,
All right. So let's talk about it. Bet Sussman is saying, I've known Bet from New York back in the day.
That's my girl. Let me see. What was the Whitney Houston tour? I was out. I was opening for Whitney, playing with Kirk Whalum, and also playing with Debbie. Wait a minute.
Gibson. No,
the Winans girls. I can't think of the girl. They were an act. They were opening for
on your resume, Debbie Gibson, and I started laughing because my friend Louis Appel was a drummer with Debbie Gibson in the 80s. Did you know Louis Appel?
No, I didn't know Louis. But wait. So working with the 2 acts, I worked with them opening for Whitney Houston, and then Bet was on that gig, and she was always wearing roller skates and rolling around and doing our rehearsals. So, she's amazing. I love her.
She is amazing.
So Debbie Gibson, a lot of that stuff that's on that resume, I played with either on a TV show or either I was in a house band.
Right.
Where they were guests. And that was so I didn't tour with Debbie Gibson.
I see.
But I did play with her on a number of occasions, because at one particular time I was doing a lot of TV and doing a lot of if you say, what do they call them, benefits, where I was in the house band and she would actually sing.
So how was we're going to go back to the beginning, but how was playing like the house band with Rick Dean? Was that a good gig for you?
It was a wonderful gig for me, only because I got a lot of airplay. That was funny. How did that come about? I got a phone call one morning from the people who were putting together the music, and they wanted to do like this audition thing. What they were looking for, wait a minute, who was Billy Bear and the Beaters? That was the band originally.
Uh-huh.
So what they were looking for, and I quote, they needed youth and color.
Oh boy.
So I mean, and of course that didn't sit too well with those guys, and because they were being replaced by, by someone who was always hanging around the set and looked like they jumped on the opportunity to get a band together. So I get a call to ask if I would audition for the band, and I think the original band was Freddie Washington on bass, who is who's out with Steely Dan right now. They called me. Teddy Castellucci on guitar. I mean, it was a great studio band. It was that kind of a thing. What made their minds up to keep me was at that audition. After we played a song, I just chimed in, as loudly as I can. I said, "Y'all had both feet in the doo-doo on that." And Rick Dees, of course, just loved it and said, "Okay, here's the deal. We're gonna make him the spokesman." I wasn't the MD, but Rick would come out every night and speak to his sidekick, and then turn around and speak to me.
Wow.
And then that was sort of the big deal there.
How did that go over with the MD? That it was.
Oh, it was fine, because he was getting paid MD money. He didn't have to say a damn thing as long as the check cleared, So
I get that. So the 90s were really, all right, before we get to the 90s, you're a little kid in Houston. What are your parents musical? How does this happen for you?
My mom played piano and organ in the church.
Okay.
My uncle, God rest his soul, Alan Matthews, I played in his organ trio when I was 11 years old. So
were
we did that.
Drums your first instrument?
It is my only instrument.
Okay, and why? What pulled you to the drums?
Oddly enough, I was watching the Lawrence Welk show, and what's his name, Humphrey, was playing drums, and I said, "Mommy, I want to play that." And I was 4 years old at the time. I didn't get my first drum until I was 7, but it kind of, then I got a drum set, and then I play drum set, and then my grandparents, God rest their soul, they bought me my first real drum set at the early age of 11.
How did your parents deal with you playing drums?
My mom had the same. My dad was always away because he's a career serviceman, 4 years in the Marines and then 26 years in the Army.
Oh wow!
My mom dealt with it the same way my wife deals with it. When I'm sitting down playing drums, she knows where I am. Exactly. So that was fine. And also too, with my dad being in the service, the early years, we had a basement, and so that's where the drum set was, along with the stereo, and that's where I played.
They don't have basements in LA, do they? I don't think they have basements. No. Yeah, there's no basements there. So so you're playing when you're a kid. Who was other than Lawrence Welk, the Lawrence Welk band? Who were your drumming idols when you were a kid?
Oh wow! Once again, playing in my uncle's organ trio, and listen, all the obvious people, the Buddy Riches and the Gene Krupas and the people who I saw, every night, say on the Tonight Show.
Right.
But then my uncle turned me on to Art Blakey, and he turned me on to Elvin Jones, and then I went into Max Roach, who is my favorite drummer. Now, I guess what I'm saying, they express themselves in a deeper, not so much in a pop setting or big band setting. It was jazz, it was the real deal as far as I was concerned. And then with my uncle's organ trio, he was friends with Jimmy Smith. Jimmy Smith would use my uncle's rig whenever he came down into the Texas region in that area. So So that sort of thing. Now, my uncle, we played the blues all night long, and that was great. And I did that all the way through junior high school, and then got introduced um, to playing funkier music,
I
I
was
guess.
just gonna say, how did the funk
Yeah.
hit you?
Well, just growing up in that area, there was always funk. There was always, the first time I heard Tower of Power, I was totally blown away. As far as the studio thing, when I first heard Harvey Mason, I was totally blown away. And then I became a huge Steve Gadd fan as well. But that was a certain era. But like I say, the funk stuff came because the guys in the neighborhood were throwing down, and they were the real deal. And so when I heard Tower of Power, I really did think it was a black guy playing drums, where it was David Garibaldi playing, and he sounded like the guys in the neighborhood, So that was the kind of funk I grew up on.
So how did you get out of the neighborhood? How did so you're playing? Okay, so you're playing church gigs first.
I didn't start playing church gigs until I got out here. I'd never played a church gig before. Yeah, I was never a church drummer. But how I got out of playing that circuit, if you will,
Right.
I found out quickly that playing in, look, let's just be real. Okay, when I say that circuit, I was playing with my uncle, and we were playing juke joints. We were playing in the black neighborhoods. We were doing that. I'm not going to call it the chitlin circuit, because I actually made pretty good money.
So you're doing this while you're underage and you're still in school?
Yes, my uncle actually had to. It was my uncle, and it was my cousin, and we were his shtick. In other words, we're these kids playing this music with him, and I never got in bed before midnight ever.
Right. How'd you do in school?
I did well in school until I got into high school, and I would be playing gigs late at night, and I would be sleeping in my first period class, and the teacher would just say, "You know what? It's okay. Herman worked last night." And how did she know I worked last night? Because she was there.
Oh, stop.
Well, I went to a performing arts school. I went to the high school for performing and visual arts, and so, it was a big deal. Everybody went.
They had respect for the arts there, obviously.
Yes, they encouraged it almost.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, I just had to make sure I got my lessons done. I did okay. I did well. I did well. But okay. So there was a time when I had to draw the line, and instead of making, $50 a gig, I decided I was going to work on the other side of the tracks. And luckily, in that high school, my first year in that school, there was a gentleman named Scott Gertner and David Goldstein who loved the way I played. And they asked me if I would be in a band with them. And where they played 6 nights a week, literally for like 2 years in one place. So, breaking into that and breaking into even the jazz scene where, and I say this again, where white players were playing and getting paid the real dough, I guess you would say. You know what? And I say that. The other band that was doing all of that was a band that Kirk Whalen was in, and that was Bubba Thomas and the Lightmen, and we were working at the same place. I just so happened to be working with a white act. So there you have it.
Herman, when you were really young, were you self-taught, or did you take lessons right away?
I was self-taught. I went to a junior high school that had an incredible music teacher. Her name was Ann Price, and she saw to it that I went to Interlochen, which is international school up in Michigan. And she saw to it that I would audition for the high school for the performing and visual arts. She actually took me to my first clinic that Louis Belson gave, and I met Louis Belson when I was in junior high school. So, I had people who cared about me and about my future and about my music, So, and then when I got into high school, I met this incredible, I say incredible teacher. First, I met Ed Trongoni, who was over the music department. God rest his soul. But then I met Bob Morgan, Dr. Bob Morgan, who to this day, you know, I stay in touch with, and a wonderful musician who always checks in on me. You know.
It sounds like you had a lot of mentors in your life. Is that something that you now do in turn for others?
I try to. I mean, it's kind of funny I always grew up, you know, the youngest. And I was always the youngest in the club, or always the youngest around musicians. So I always looked up to these people. And when I played, my thing was to rise to the occasion. You know, I do know that there are young people that are out there who are looking for that same kind of guidance. Mm-hmm. I try to do that when I know that they're out there or know that I'm playing with them. The downside of all of that is that I still look up to people, or I'm looking for someone to look up to when I'm playing. And sometimes it fails. And sometimes it fails me. And I'm sitting here, I'm playing with someone who's won 2 Grammys, you know, great players in their thing, but I want them to be better. And so sometimes I get a little upset with myself because I'm thinking that they should be better than what they really are.
Interesting.
It's a weird curse, I guess you would say. But once again, when I do get a chance to play with those people who are just amazing, you know, I try to rise to that occasion. So
where did it start? Where did the professional, where did the big cut? How did you get out of Texas? How did it start? How did you go from high school to?
Okay. So from high school, you know, I fell into that trap of working with great bands and making great money. And when I say great bands in Houston, there are wonderful musicians.
What kind of venues were you? What kind of venues were you doing that you were making great money?
Well, when I say great money, when I say great money, please understand. When I was working 5, 6 nights, well, actually, I was working 7 nights a week. I worked 6 nights a week in the club, and then I would work on Sundays at a place called the Great Caruso, a place where the waiters would sing. And, you know, and we were playing that, you know, and then I would have a cocktail gig somewhere where I would play, you know, that started at 4 o'clock and do that. And then I would go to my night gig. So I say great money, you know, one gig I would make $550 a week. And then, you know, around that with all of the other gigs I was working 6 nights a week. Now, the thing is, though, making $550 a week, I was living in an apartment that was $250 a month. So you understand, you know, so that's great money comparatively speaking.
Yeah.
I would always when people would come through and check out the band that I was playing in, you know, people from the Al Jarreau band, from the Mini Loggins band, from whatever band I was in town, they would always come and see us play. And I would always say, I want to move to LA. I want to move to LA, you know, and I would get their phone numbers and I would stay in touch. And then they would always say, now let me get this straight. You know, you're making $550 a week. Your apartment is $250 a month, and you're playing a gig and you're playing great music, and you want to move to LA? You know, it was always that sort of thing. You know, it was just the grass was always greener on the other side.
Do you think you manifested it? Because it sounds like it was a dream.
A dream come true. I mean, you know, I came. Okay, so the bottom fell out of the whole Texas music scene, or the whole Houston music scene.
How?
Well, oil. You know, they were building high rises with lights off. So, you know, I went from playing in a band that was very popular and to crowded, you know, clubs, to working an hour out of Houston at a Holiday Inn where, you know, playing to 4 people. You know, so literally that month that we did that, as I'm driving back and forth, I said, you know what, I'm going to move to LA. Screw this, I'm out. And 3 days later, I got a phone call from Kirk Whalum, who said, Herman, I want to talk to you about something. I want you to play in my band. Now, before you say yes, you're going to have to move out to LA. And so I went, let me think about it for a second. And I went, yes, you know. It just all kind of sort of fell together.
Do you believe, because I believe in manifesting, do you believe that you manifested that?
No, I mean, what I'm saying by that,
Okay.
is that, I know that miracles or certain things, fate, I know it happens, I guess,
Mhm.
I really wasn't thinking about that.
Mhm.
It really fell into my lap. And I really do. I always say this, and a lot of people, I say I was lucky, fortunate, and blessed. And I know that being blessed or being lucky has nothing to do with being blessed. I mean, an opportunity came and I took advantage of it.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so
Uh, uh,
you come out to
and then,
LA, and
I'm
so
sorry.
so you come out to LA, and how,
Yeah.
you don't have a $250 apartment anymore, and are you?
No, you know what? I decided to move out to LA, and then my best friend at the time, whose name is Everett Harp,
Mhm.
he decided to move out to LA with me. So his wife came out early before we did
Mhm.
and found the place. And so we were all roommates. We were paying, the three of us were paying for the rental of a home.
Mhm.
And I would say I had already, I had the Kirk Whalum gig. And my second night in town, Kirk Whalum played 2 nights at the Baked Potato. And with Kirk being up and coming at the time,
Mhm.
we sold out all 4 shows. And at one of those shows was an individual who thought I would be a good drummer for Bob James,
Mhm.
who wrote the music for Taxi, and
Mhm.
he's a great jazz pianist. And Kirk Whalum was also working for Bob James at the
Mhm.
time, so they were looking for a drummer. So Kirk Whalum is telling Bob James, "Hey, my drummer would be interested in your gig." And then this individual, Doc Gibbs, the percussionist, who was sitting in the audience, calls Bob and says, "Man, I think I may have found your drummer." So Bob is thinking it's 2 different guys, and it just so happened to be me. Once again, in the right place at the right time. So I got a chance to audition and play with Bob. I got
Mhm.
a chance to audition and play with Al Jarreau. Um, uh, all that happened the first week I was in town.
Oh, come on.
So now take this. So I start playing with Bob James, and I'm playing with Kirk Whalum,
Mhm.
and I would say there's about 6 weeks of that, and then I get a phone call from Kenny Loggins, who is saying, I'm looking for a drummer and I need you, blah, 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 this. So it all kind of sort of fell in. And for a long time, I was doing all of those gigs at one time.
Oh.
And it was as if, it was as if, it was as if God or a higher being had my scheduling book and just said, okay, he's okay, we can do this and we can make that happen. So, I got lucky.
Well, what is luck, right? It's when opportunity meets perseverance or something.
Right.
You followed through. You did your part. You did the footwork, right? You did your part.
Well, yeah. And I had the smile and I was in the right place in the right time.
So that was in the 80s.
That was let me see, 88. Yeah. Late 80s, early 90s, I guess. Late 80s, yeah.
And so then,
Because the Rick D show came like in 91.
right, so
So
you're doing that, and then so now while you're doing Rick D's, are you still playing with?
yes, what was happening with all of that, Kenny had
Mhm.
really taken a break, and he was working on this big record that he no, let me see, wait. 91, let me see, Leap of Faith was already boom. So what he was working on was doing this live concert outside, live at the Redwoods,
Mhm.
um, which kind of took him forever to get it all together. So while he is doing that, I'm doing the Rick D show. Um, I was doing Bob James, who had taken a break, but Bob was about to start working again, so I had to let that gig go.
Mhm.
Um, I had to let the Kirk Whalum gig go because actually the Kenny Loggins gig got in the way with that. So I'm doing TV. And then after that was over, I got back with Kenny Loggins, or in the middle of that, I should say. I go on a gig with Kenny Loggins and I meet Hope on a plane going to Hawaii. And that's how our relationship started.
Aw.
I know. All the women go, oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's how that happened.
So you met on a plane, and did you know? Was it love at first? I mean, did you just know? Did you? What was that like?
This is the deal. I was walking through the airport. I hear someone laughing. It's her, and I'm thinking, "Oh, what a happy soul!" And for some reason, I got on the plane first. It wasn't that I was in first class, but I don't know. Maybe it was miles or something of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
I sit down and I do the one thing that I do every time I get on the plane, and I get ready to go to sleep. Because I figure the shortest distance between 2 points is to take a nap. You know? So, then I hear this voice saying, "You're not going to sleep, are you?" And it's Hope, and her seat is right next to mine in the middle. And she's with her brother, who's sitting on the other side. Mm-hmm. And we have a pleasant conversation to Hawaii and really got to know each other. And basically how I knew that I was really attracted to her is that when I was telling her I was working with Mini Loggins and doing this TV show and doing this, that, and the other, it didn't faze her one bit. She didn't give a damn. So I go, all right. So we became friends because I was dating someone and she was dating someone. And we were friends for about a little over a year. And then soon after that, it was like, what are we doing? And then we started dating.
I have to tell you that Kat Quill is saying hello from Oz. She made it.
Hello, beautiful.
I saw earlier that she was hoping she could make it, so I had to tell you she was here. So, okay, so how did Tower of Power happen? That had to be a trip from.
Well, Tower of Power, like I said, I was lucky, fortunate, and blessed, or I've been lucky, fortunate, and blessed to work with my heroes, work with guys or acts that I grew up listening to. So I was out on a Richard Marx tour. Let me see. And what would happen, in the middle of the tour, we would come back home and I would play a place called the China Club, where I was
a promoter at the China Club in New York, and
so Alan, the same thing, the same thing, but out here in LA. So I was in the house band, or I would play. By the way,
on the cover of my book, this is 75th and Broadway. This is the corner of the China Club. That's why it's the cover of my book.
Oh wow! Yeah. See, come on.
Yeah.
So in that house band, one particular night, Doc Kupka, the Barry player for Tower of Power, he was there, and I just said to him, I said, "Hey man, if anytime you want to get together and do some writing, please give me a call." Okay, so now set that aside. Off and on, I will be playing with a band called Flex, which had Rocco Prestia, the bass player, playing in it. And so we would have our moments in playing, and Rocco went to Tower and just said, "Hey guys, if you're looking for a drummer, I know somebody."
Wow.
So now Richard Marx is doing his thing, and we're on a break, and I get a call from the leader of Tower of Power, and he says, first I get a call from Doc, and he says, "Hermie, expect a call at the beginning of the year," and then he hangs up. And so I did get a call from Emilio Castillo, the leader of Tower, and he wanted to know if I was interested in playing with the band. And I said, yes. And he says, "Wonderful. Can you start at this particular date?" And I said, "I can't. I am booked through March." And so he said, "All right, we'll wait for you." And thankfully they did, Did
that scare you to say? I love your integrity that you wouldn't fail on your other gigs to go off the Tower of Power, but was that had to be nerve-wracking to say no?
Well,
no,
I guess. I mean, but also too, with youth comes cockiness and or as my mother would say, you're smelling your own musk, and so and it wasn't so much I was like worried. I was working and I was doing the thing that I do, and we would stay in touch, And so as soon as the Richard Marx thing was over, they kept their word, So I came in on playing a record. We were in the studio.
Mhm.
So it was preparation for that, you know,
Right.
working on that and making that happen.
Right.
The first gig
Uh-huh.
came shortly after that, and they said, "Okay, we're playing the Ventura Theater." You know, so I'm saying, "Okay, well, rehearsal dates." And they looked at me and they said, "What rehearsal dates?" So it was just, you know, me sitting in or starting with that band cold. Um,
Wow.
so thankfully, Russ McKinnon, the drummer who was there before me, he played the gig great. They recorded him great, and I just mapped out everything that he did, and that was my saving grace.
Wow. And so
And
that,
I was with the band for 4.5 years.
yeah, a good long time. So what was that experience like? I mean, what venues were you playing like in those days with Tower of Power?
Well, you know, they were always bigger in Europe. They're bigger in Europe than they are
Wow.
here in the States now.
Okay.
They're huge over there, and so you know, we were playing large clubs, small theaters, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, when we came over here, we were playing very small clubs.
Mhm.
But you know what, Tower of Power, and I don't mean this in a weird way, but it's the greatest club band I've ever worked with. You know, uh, they do play bigger venues at times. Um, this past time, subbing for David Garibaldi when he was having double hip replacement surgery. Uh, they were playing sheds and arenas, opening for the Steve Miller Band and Journey.
Wow.
So you know they do have their opportunities. So yeah, you know.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the other people you've got. So what was it like playing with Mini Loggins? How's that experience for you?
Kenny Loggins actually was the greatest experience ever. I would say that my Tower of Power was my first self-indulgent band, if you will, and it was great. You know, Kenny Loggins was that band or that artist that I played with. That I will always say, if you can work with Kenny Loggins, you can work with anyone. Just
Wow.
because that he is very knowledgeable about what he likes to do and what he wants out of a musician and out of a player. Um, and you know he still sings great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big learning experience for me, and I was with him off and on almost 10 years.
Yeah.
The other person that was like that, before I finish, Kenny Loggins, I mean, talk about someone who is when I say a star, I don't mean that that his head was big. It's just that he was a very professional individual who's been there, you know, and it was great, you know. When I look at clips of the things that we did back then, the music still holds up. The groove is
Oh
amazing.
God, yeah.
It's you know he writes great songs, and I was a big Loggins and Messina fan
Me
back in the
too.
day.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wasn't so much. Well, God, this sounds weird. A Kenny Loggins fan, that was okay, but the whole thing, the marriage of
The
folk,
Hinola. Oh, please. The
all right, all that folk, rock, country, you know,
yeah, yeah.
soul, all of that, the mixture of that was where my heart, you know, really is.
Wow.
You know, so that's why I gel so well with Teresa James, you know, because her, what I like to call Texas soul or Texas R&B, or you know, with the mixture of the country and the folk and all of that. Yeah, and besides, she just sings the hell out of it all.
Oh
So
my God. She's like Bonnie Raitt, Reba McEntire. She's got like the best of all that stuff rolled into her.
I always like to say, you know, when you know people are always comparing her to Bonnie, and I would say, well, take Bonnie and take Patsy Cline and take Aretha Franklin and you know roll it up all together and
Reba. I hear a lot of Reba in there too.
Reba, yeah.
Teresa's amazing. And
Right.
Terry's a great songwriter. So
He's
they're
an amazing songwriter. He's an amazing teacher as well. You know, so I've been lucky, fortunate, and blessed to work with them. Um, you know, I've learned a lot from Terry. You know, his theory about being a songwriter is, you know, he will always ask, "What are you working on? You know, what are you doing?" So, if you're a musician, if you're a songwriter, you should wake up every morning writing about something.
Wow.
Even if it's about the doorknob, write about it.
Wow.
Hone your skill. And so that's Terry. So he's been a wonderful mentor in that way, and playing that music. My hat's off to them for sticking it to them, and I'm pissed that they're not even further along. The world should love
absolutely.
Teresa James and should love the compositions of Terry Wilson. So
it's insane that they're not ridiculously famous. It's insane. It's wrong. But it's not right. That it takes one right moment for something like that to happen.
I know. And even with them making the decision to when they did receive those deals, or when they were offered the deals, they decided to stay home and be parents. So my hats off to them, for that. But Jesse is an amazing musician, all around musician, not just bass player, but he's a great songwriter. He's a great drummer, and then Lucy, of course, I'm in love with Lucy because I remember her when she was in her mommy's arms, and so she, both of their kids have turned out to be amazing. But there you have that. But okay, so Kenny Loggins was one that I learned a lot from. A great gig. The Tower of Power gig, a great gig. But the Tom Jones gig that I did for 7.5 years.
Okay,
that was also
when were you with Tom? I used to work at this place in New York called Maxwell's Plum, and Tom was a regular customer of mine. Whenever he came to New York, I waited on Tom Jones when I was in my 20s.
How many times did he hit on you? Come on.
I have to say, he was like, he was the biggest tipper, and he would come in really late, and he drank the finest of the fine, smoked the best, ate the best, everything was the best. But he was an absolute gentleman. He was a flirt, but he was an absolute gentleman. So what year, when were you with Tom?
I started with him, I think, in 2001? 2001, 2002, and it all ended in 2009 or something like that.
Okay, so I knew Tom in the late 70s and early 80s.
Right.
Right. So it was a whole different, the Tom then was a whole different thing. So, but he's kept his voice, his voice is still amazing.
Right. He's from what I understand, he's semi-retired now. And I was with him when he decided to, when he stopped coloring his hair and he let it go white, but it was just a great band, and that, and Tom, he used to be a drummer, and he used to sing from behind the drums. Wow. And he then, just came out front. And so when I teamed up with him, when I joined the band, or when they hired me, I should say, how
did that happen, Herman?
Okay, here we go.
That's an interesting story. Tom Jones is like.
Okay, so how did it happen? Okay, I was, I had friends who were playing with him. I was working in a club called Cafe Cordial, and you're right, Peter May and family, the musical director for Tom Jones would always come into Cafe Cordial and would hear, one of 8 of my bands,
right.
Brian Monroney, an amazing musician, an amazing guitarist, an amazing arranger. He would come and he would always sit in the audience. I mean, you never come up and say anything, but just sit in the audience. One night he did come up and he asked if I would be interested in joining the Tom Jones band. And this is shortly after I left Tower of Power. Mm-hmm. And of course he sent me an itinerary, and I'm looking at the schedule. And I would say the only artist that rivaled the schedule of Tower of Power was Tom Jones. Wow. And when I showed it to my wife, her whole thing, and Tower used to work, I would say close to 200, if not more, dates a year.
Wow.
I mean, they just worked all the time. That was
wow.
So I'm showing my wife the itinerary of
Yeah.
Tom Jones, and she said, "Let me get this straight. You just got off the road with somebody. You're never home, and you're getting ready to go back out with someone." You know, and so I said no. Now, cut to 8 years.
Wait, are
later.
you a dad yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Not yet. Wait. With Tom Jones, yes, I became a dad.
Okay.
Right before that. Yeah. Right before that, I became a dad.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I want to say I think my son was a kid. He was a baby. But okay, so let me see if I can get this right. Okay. So I'm playing with a pianist that plays with Tom Jones, Frank Strauss. You know, wonderful guy, wonderful pianist. And I'm working with them on another gig out at Spaghettini. Yeah. And so I said, "Hey man, what's going on? What are you doing?" He said, "Well, you know, we're holding auditions for, you know, drummers for the Tom Jones." You know, and I went, "Why didn't you guys give me a call?" Literally, you know, I was like, "I'm here. I mean, come on."
Yeah.
So, because at the time I was looking for something, you know, everything had just, and so he says, well, okay. So he tells Brian Monroney that I'm available. And I find out later that the reason why they didn't, that they weren't interested, is because the drummer that they had for a short period of time before, we kind of came from the same schools. I mean, he played drums for the Average White Band, and I played drums, you know, and we were kind of that kind of drummer, and I knew he would. So they were saying, okay, let's not waste our time with finding someone who does the same thing.
Right.
Not realizing that I'm one of those guys that adapts to the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I called the bass player who's playing with Tom Jones, and I'm going, "Yo, man, why don't you guys give me a call?" And so he says, "Don't worry, man, I'll make it happen." So I do receive a call at the last minute, and I'm the last drummer to go in and play. And now I don't think there's a chance in hell. And I go in. Well, I don't. You know, I go in. I play the gig. I play the audition rather. I want to say that they sent me stuff the day before.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I go there, and a left-handed drummer had set up, and I turned, the kick snare and the hat around and the ride cymbal, and I'm playing a minimum kit, and I play it, and so thank you guys. That's really all I wanted was an audition. So I get back home, or by the time I get home, I get a phone call saying, "You got the gig." So my first thing, and I don't mean this in a weird way, it was like, I didn't want the gig. I just wanted to be asked to audition for the gig. But I'm thankful, though, that I got a chance to play the gig. So that's really how that came along.
And so what, Tom, even then, was like women are throwing panties and doing all that crazy.
I couldn't believe it. Now, my first gig with him was in Atlantic City. We had a day's rehearsal without Tom, and then we flew to Atlantic City, and literally the next day we started the gig. And I meet Tom 5 minutes before going out on stage. So,
wow.
Hi, Tom, blah, blah, blah. And when we're offline, I'll tell you what that conversation was all about.
Good.
So now we're on stage, and we're playing, the first song, and Tom is singing, and Tom is kind of looking over his shoulder, and second song comes up, and Tom's singing and kind of looks over his shoulder, and I'm thinking, okay, I've lost the gig on the first night. I can't believe it, And third song, Tom goes up and and so then after that third song, he comes up to me, and so I lean over. He says, "I love your foot, man. Your foot is amazing. I love your foot." And what was happening, the drum riser was up where the hole of the bass drum, and I'm hitting it this way, was hitting him in the back. And it just, he felt that, and he loved it. And I would say from that time on, we became really good friends.
Wow.
I mean, to the point where, as you say, he stays up late and he has his drink and his dinner. And the first time I ever had Cristal was with Tom Jones. The first, it was the finest of everything.
The finest of everything. He used to order cognac that was $200 a shot. Cuban cigar. I mean, the best wine. Decant. I used to decant wine for him. I mean, the best of everything.
Yeah. We're over in Europe. We're Europe, Spain somewhere. And over there, they keep the nightclubs or the bars open as long as there's someone in the bar.
Right.
So and I loved hanging with Tom because he's an aficionado on the blues. He's an aficionado on rock and roll. That was his. That was his thing. And if you hang with him long enough, any night, he's going to end up singing to you.
Oh,
so he's telling me the stories, and he's telling me, hanging with Elvis, and he's telling me all this stuff, and I was just eating it up.
Oh my God!
I'm looking out, and I see that the sun is coming up, and so I said, Tom, I really have to. I gotta go to bed. Sound check is in. I gotta go. And he's like, Herman. What else would you like to drink? I said, Tom, I gotta go to bed. He's like, nonsense, bartender. And we stayed there and just, more stories, more singing, until my sound check. I didn't sleep that night. But it was
we kept Maxwell Plum whenever he came. He was the last person there every time. But I knew even if he kept me there till 2 a.m, he was going to give me $100 bill every time.
He was going to tip you well, right?
Yeah,
right.
He was going to take care. So that gig lasted you a long time. Why did that gig stop? I was there
for 7.5 years, and then they decided 6 weeks before the summer tour to fire the band.
Wow.
So they let go of the band, a 10-piece band, only to hire another 10-piece band, but with younger musicians from the UK. So, in my mind, I'm thinking maybe it was money, maybe they thought they were paying us too much. And I will say this, every year we did get a raise,
Nice.
And even when I got with the band, I think I just said, I'll whatever the other drummer's making, I'll do that, which was a mistake, or either they were lying to me about what he was making. And then finally, after the first 6 weeks, I said, look, this is what I have to make. And so from there, we would get raises and all. If it was about money, my thing was, talk to us. We can talk about the salaries. If it's too much, let's talk. But I'm finding out that it has something to do with the unions, and it got really crazy, and we ended up having to sue, and it was a big mess. So that's how that ended. And I want to say, as much as I love Tom, a decision like that definitely comes from the top.
Right.
Someone, gave it to him, and he okayed it, So, to a certain degree, they can all kiss my ass. So,
did you have a goodbye with him after all that social?
Not really. I mean, there was the last gig, and the band, we all hugged each other, took that last photo, and that was really about it. So, and now I do understand, and I understand that the show must go on. I mean, that's even when I had my episode, as my wife calls it, or my stroke.
We're going to talk about that too.
Okay,
yeah.
Right. Which was in the middle of a Tom Jones gig, a 2-week run in Vegas. That night, Tom was going to go on. He wasn't going to cancel the show. So, they found us up and they did the show. It went on. And I mean, I don't blame them. I mean, I'm a side man. I'm not, it's not like the Tom and Herman show. It's not that. It's not like I'm a part of an act. But no, the show went on. I mean, as long as there was somebody back there playing drums and it was adequate and that was, good enough for Tom, then he didn't care. So
So what? So I know one of your most recent credits is working with Boz Scaggs, who's another one that I just. What was that like?
well, Boz, I did a short rehearsal with him,
Mhm.
and he wanted a new band. He hired this new band, and we went out and did about 3.5, 4 weeks worth of work. And I think he decided that it wasn't exactly what he was looking for.
Hmm.
So he changed the band again. We had a good time. The audition thing was we were the greatest thing ever, and then things kind of changed a bit. So it happens. It
It's
happens.
funny because I'm such a huge fan, and I went and saw him at the Grammy Museum probably about 5 or 6 years ago. He
Uh-huh.
didn't do one song. I have never been to the Grammy Museum to see an artist and have them not perform
Yeah.
at all. And it was such an enormous disappointment. Everybody left unhappy. Everybody left sad. Everybody. It's just kind
You
of
know,
sad.
he's. I think he's a wonderful artist, and he's done what he's done, or he's doing what he's doing.
Mhm.
But like I said, we just didn't mesh. But also, too, I'm one of those guys. I'm not afraid to stand up and speak my mind about certain things.
Uh-huh.
And so there was a certain song that we played that I spoke up about that I thought was fake on the field, that it was an LA thing. And I don't think he took too likely to that. I mean, and who am I to say? You know what I'm saying? Here's a song that's worked for him forever, for years. I mean, and here I'm a newcomer coming in saying that's bullshit. So
Nice. So who
so I'm sure that didn't stick well with him. So
who are some of, aside from the obvious, Power and Tom Jones and all that, who are some of your favorite people to play with, just for the fun of it, for the funk of it, for the.
wow. I mean, there are a lot of local bands around that I
Mhm.
played with. I mean, the people that I wish I could have played with,
Ah.
and not so much for the funk of it, because I'm not really. Say, how can I say this in a I don't think. I mean, there are some people that know me as a funky musician,
Mhm.
but then there's, the Tower of Power crowd.
Mhm.
They don't know the Teresa James crowd.
Right.
And even when I had the opportunity of playing with Tower of Power and Tom Jones at the same time, because Garibaldi was having a kid,
Mhm.
or having having a baby.
Mhm.
There was 2 weeks there or a week there when Tower of Power and Tom Jones were on the same bill. So I would play the first,
Oh my God.
part of the show. I would play the first part of the show with Tower of
Mhm.
Power, and
Mhm.
then come back and play with Tom Jones.
Wow.
But very rarely do those worlds collide.
Right.
Um, even the funk people I know, they don't want to hear the Timothy B. Schmidt stuff that I play.
Mhm.
So whenever friends of mine, when I go to a city and they say, "Man, we want to come out and see it," and they're Tower of Power fans, and
Mhm.
I'm playing with Timothy B. Schmidt, I
Mhm.
tell them, and once again, I don't mean this in any weird way, but I tell them, you might want to pack yourself a couple of Red Bulls and come out, and see, because Timothy is it's a very gentle gig.
Uh-huh.
It's a very, it's wonderful songs, and he's soft spoken, and
Mhm.
nothing's balls to the wall.
Mhm.
So
So what personally, you said some of the people that you didn't get to play with, like who didn't you get to play with that you wish you would have gotten to play with?
Bill Withers,
Mm.
I wish I got a chance. I almost had the chance. I mean, I was asked by his musical director, who was the keyboardist for Kenny Loggins. He said, "Man, would you be interested in doing a Bill Withers gig? He's thinking about coming back." And I said, "Of course." The other person I would love to work with still to this day is James Taylor. You know, that's a very musical gig. I would love to do that. Let me see. You know, there are a lot of young acts out there that I would love to play with, but once again, I'm not a church drummer. You know, they would have to kind of, Bruno Mars. What's my man's name?
Love
Who was with we went to one of his shows. You know, I just had to go to and see his show because I do feel that he's a bridge between the old school and the new school.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, I am to the point. I am at that age where I do what I do. You know, I'm not trying to be so much the best drummer that I can be. I'm trying to be the best musician that I can be.
Oh, I like it.
And that's why sometimes it doesn't quite gel with the youngsters who are the drummers that do all the and then the behind this and then now I admire it. I just can't do it. So
it's not who you are.
But if you want somebody to give you 2 and 4 all night long and make it feel good,
You're the guy. You're the guy. So favorite bass players that you've played with?
Oh wow. That's okay. So the famous guys, I played with Marcus Miller and Nathan East, Leland Sklar, Dr. John Chambodi, who used to play with who was he? He used to play with Lucinda Williams, and he played with a band called Clover, which turned into the Huey Lewis and the News Band. Now, Leland and also Dr. John Chambodi played on my record. So those guys I love. Now, Terry Wilson, he's very, very high on my list. And I kind of sort of put them in categories. There's Leland Sklar, there's Terry Wilson, because they understand a certain kind of groove. There's also a bass player who I work with a lot. His name is Michael Manel, and he's one of those guys where we kind of understand each other. A young guy who's just amazing. Kind of a young Leland Sklar, if you will. There's a bass player named Dwayne Smitty Smith, who's in the smooth jazz world. Working with him, he was in a couple of my bands here in LA coming up when we were trying to get deals. A band called Ace Boom Coon and another band called Big Pygmies. And I mean, when I listen to that stuff now, I'm going, wow. No, and I mean, wow, in a good way. They were both bands that were sort of like a cross between the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Fishbone.
Ooh, fun.
So it's that sort of thing, that kind of rocky funk or funky rock. There are so many guys out there who play. There are a lot of young bass players who are out there who just kill me. The bass player I'm working with now with East Bay Soul, Del Atkins, is a very musical, very solid individual. So,
Did you ever run into a wall there? I mean, were you ever part of a band and like you didn't jive with the bass player and like that was not happening? Does that ever happen?
Not in the band that I was in. No. I have worked with musicians where the lope or the hump or the groove didn't jive. And maybe I played the way I played now so that anyone could kind of sort of fall into the pocket that I create, which is playing a little simpler, being more of a diplomat when it comes to playing the groove, knowing that, if there's someone who understands the swinging straight eighth note, like Terry Wilson, Mike Manel, Leland Sklar, I mean, they understand that rock and roll Southern lope, which is kind of that, okay, when you hear some certain Elvis songs, you hear the, not it's that kind of thing, the thing in between. And what goes between all of that, they understand that thing. So I love them for that. I love the funksters that play the funk. I can work with any bass player who's musical, and we can jive together in that way.
So how did Home at Last come about? I call it your album. It's a CD. Call it a CD. I'm going to put the link so that people can get it.
Thank you.
What's the best way for people to buy your music so that you get the most out of it?
Well, I guess you can go to my website, which is hermanmatthews.com.
I'll put the link
and look for it there, and you can buy the songs there and do that. That all came about. There was a producer, or is a producer, that I work with and write with, and his team of musicians, to play records that he's producing was, I say was because of the virus. Now we haven't done anything. Dean Parks on guitar, Doug Pettibone on guitar, Leland Sklar on bass, and me on drums, and he would play keyboards. And we did lots of records together, played a lot of music together. One particular day after a session, Ned Albright is his name. And Ned Albright is the one who, if you remember the Archies.
Oh, Sugar.
He was the one that was, he sang background with them and he played keyboards with them. So sugar, boom, 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 boom. That's Ned Albright, and he's played with tons of people, and he's just, a lot of people he knew from the Tin Pan Alley days, and so he's a writer and he's a great producer, great piano player. Played the bass line on Montego Bay, if you remember that song at all.
I think actually the Archies were on the Happy Together. He hasn't done it recently with them, has he? Okay.
No. This was, the records that we know.
Right. Right.
So he came up to me and said, "When are we going to do the Herman Matthews record?" And I was out with Tom Jones at the time. Yeah, I was. And so I sat back and said, I don't know. And he says, "Man, we got to do something with you." And so I didn't know, what kind of record. Being a drummer, I didn't know whether to make a drummer's record, to make a rock record, to make a funk record, to make a blues record, or to make, I didn't know. And so I said, okay, man, give me a minute. And, I do have some tunes, I have some ideas, and I'll come back and present them to you. And so when I came back off of that, 6 weeks on the road, I gave him some ideas. And he didn't realize that all of these songs were vocal tunes, because he didn't think I was going to sing on them. I'm not a great singer.
I love the way you sing. So was that something, did you do that when you were studying? Did you study voice? You had to study voice, no?
I didn't study voice, but I mean, I was always musical in that way where I would sing, I always had the opportunity to sing a song sometimes.
Right.
Which is not, I don't sit back and say, ooh, let me sing. If I had to sing, I had to sing background with Mini Loggins. I had to sing background with Richard Marx. And it does help. It helps with getting a gig, if you can say.
Yeah.
But when I brought these songs to Ned, we sat down and we kind of sort of, sketched them all out. And he says, I think we can make this happen. We can do this. So I would, I would spend a day, I would go on the road, come back home for a day, go straight to the studio. And then, like.
And your wife's loving that too, right?
Yeah, exactly. You've been gone for 6 weeks and now okay. So, but yeah, I mean, I would go to the studio. I laid down the drum tracks first and, sort of, let Ned produce all that and make that happen. And then I would call in individual people to play. I would call in Leland to play on 4 songs. I would call in John Cimboli to play on 3 songs. And then call in, we'll build it in that way. that's an expensive way of doing it, but it did happen.
Mm.
And it was released like in 06 or something like that. So I'm definitely due for another one. And I have the material ready.
I was going to say, are you writing? Okay, so Herman, in COVID, are you being creative? I mean, I know you're teaching and everything, but is your own art, are you finding your muse in this?
I'm writing some things, and I'm writing some things for, I've written for Tower of Power.
Mm-hmm.
I've written for East Bay Soul, and I have some ideas that are ready to go for the next East Bay Soul record. And we'll see what, I'll throw up against the wall and see what sticks. So,
Tony just asked, how about a book? Do you have a book in you, do you think?
It's so funny, since I've known Tony, he's always talking about
different Tony. This is Tony Vincent, but she
oh,
shot
okay,
you.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, but she shot you. She's a photographer.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's actually a couple of books in me. I would love to do a drum book, and the different kinds of things about that. I would love to do a cookbook.
You should do a cookbook. And Tony can shoot although your pictures, by the way,
No. I would have to have a
friend of mine just got on here, Wendy Liebman, and said she saw you propose to your wife on stage during Kenny.
So Wendy, I love Wendy. That's my girl. So Wendy, she was opening for Kenny Loggins to 19.
She doesn't say the year. Oh yeah, in the 90s. She just says Vegas over New Year's at the MGM.
Right. Okay. This is the deal. So the MGM Grand was reopening. It was doing, and it was a soft open. I want to give you the exact year because we got married in 95. So 1993. Okay. So this was, and dig this. So the MG Grand is reopening and nothing is working, and so you have in one room, performing room, Frank Sinatra is playing in one room.
Okay.
Right. With his band. And then in the arena is Barbra Streisand and her band. Now, mind you, we know all these musicians, right?
Right.
We know them all, right? And so in the Hollywood room is Kenny Loggins. So there's Kenny Loggins, Barbra Streisand.
Kenny Loggins, Frank Sinatra, and Barbra Streisand are all playing at the MGM at the same time.
We're all playing at the MGM Grand, right? Everyone's there. Now, you got to understand, it's a soft opening of the hotel. There's really only one floor that's working, where all the toilets are working and where everything is working. And Streisand has that floor.
Right.
Of course. Right. Okay. So now, Hollywood Theater, and it's the 28th of December, my birthday. Wendy Lieberman, she is opening, and she's doing her, funny as hell. Doing her thing, you know her, she's doing her thing, and it's great. That particular night, all bands were off. So really, the audience is filled with Streisand's musicians. Sinatra's musicians. Yeah, it was a packed room.
Right.
Loggins is playing. We finished playing "Celebrate Me Home," and Loggins, he's about to introduce me. He says, and our drummer, Herman Matthews, has a very important question to ask. So I get off the drum set and I come down, I get the microphone. I said, thank you, Kenny. And of course, I start doing 10 minutes. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the as you can see, I have no problem talking to people here, So I'm sitting there, he said, tonight's a very, very special night, because Kenny Loggins, the opening of the MGM Grand. Everybody, he said, and Kenny Loggins is here. And I'm going to ask a very important question to a very important, person in my life, and I'm going to ask I'm going to ask her to marry me, right? Now, of course, everyone kind of knows about this,
right?
Except for Hope. And around the time I'm on the stage doing this, Hope has to go to the bathroom. Oh. Yeah, I know. But as she's going, the security guard, who is in on this as well, is following her to the bathroom. And she's like going, what the hell, man? He's trying to make sure that she's out on stage, so she makes it, and and Hope comes out, and I do the whole thing, and I said it takes a very special person to put up with with a musician, and with someone, will you marry me? I'm saying all this, and I'm out loud and all that, and she takes the microphone and she goes, yes.
Did she had no idea it was coming?
No idea it was coming.
Oh my
No
God.
idea it was coming.
I love
so, and that's, and Wendy was there, and afterwards, we're drinking, hey! So it was nice.
That's so sweet. So Herman, before we go, I want to talk just a little bit about what's going on in the world, because you're outspoken. We've talked about the fact that you've been booted off Twitter. Our friend Lee keeps getting booted off Facebook. You've been warned.
Well, look, my philosophy on life, period, with me, well, even before marrying this nice Jewish girl who, and we've been married now for 25 years, or going on 25 years. How dare anyone think that they're better than someone else simply because of the color of their skin? And that goes both ways, black against white, white against black, anyone, class against class, even, especially that. So I'm very outspoken on that, and
have you guys taken crap because of your? I mean, did you live through that?
Well, no, not out. I mean, yes, people talk. Every time we think about like moving somewhere, like moving to Nashville, or even just buying a house in Glendale, just that kind of thing. My wife would say something like, they don't like Jewish people there, and so I would always look at her and I would say, well, honey, before they even know that you're Jewish, they're gonna see that you're walking up with me, So calm down,
How was it for the families? I'm a Jewish girl. How was it for the families?
I know.
How was it for the families when you guys got together?
You know what? I will say this. Her parents, they've treated me with nothing but respect.
I love that.
And vice versa. They were more upset with the fact that I was a musician.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been wonderful. I love her parents. It's been good.
How did you guys raise your son?
Well, that was the thing that was interesting. No rabbi would marry us because I wouldn't convert, and I didn't want her to convert. I mean, I love her for who she is, and and I want her to love me for who I am. We did find the cantor. And his reasoning was, okay, well, there's a possibility that I may, convert. Thing is, though, like I say, I have no interest in doing that. And we raised our son. I guess I should say this: a religious foundation is something that's very important to me. So whether it be,
well, what were you raised? I don't.
Well, I'm from Texas, so I'm a Southern Baptist.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't want to assume.
So that's important to me. I'm not saying it's the only thing, but I mean, just having that foundation, and then from there, you can go and do whatever. My son, who has decided that the Jewish faith makes more sense to him.
Okay.
I have no problem with that. My son grew up in a household where, we celebrated Christmas and Hanukkah. We got the high holy days, and Easter. We all of that.
Right.
I mean, literally, my son. I mean, from the day of Christmas, having all of those gifts to the 8 days of Hanukkah, getting the gift for that. I mean, he was in hog heaven.
Yeah.
So it's. And it was important to us that we keep those traditions.
So you did Passover Seders, and you did.
Oh yeah, we do the whole thing. We do it all. And when we got married, my mom being from Texas
Mhm.
and understanding the Old and New Testament, so
Mhm.
she understands Hebrew.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
better than, I say Hebrew, not the language Hebrew. I'm sorry. She understands what, someone who is Hebrew. She
I
understands that
okay.
because she understands the Old Testament. But
Gotcha.
she had no idea that that the children of Israel, later on were called Jewish.
Mhm.
So she had no idea what that was. So when we got married and got married by a cantor, it worked for her because everything that he was speaking lined up with her beliefs of the Old Testament.
Right.
So, and that's the way it should be. And, that's why I had no problem with a rabbi or with a cantor, marrying us because I agree with it all. Now, where it gets a little hairy with everyone agreeing on my side
Mhm.
is, yes, an individual agreed to die for my sins. And
Okay, I was going to say, how's your wife with the whole Jesus thing? Because
well, she's okay. She's okay with it because she understands that. Where it gets really hairy, though, is the whole thing of him dying and him coming back on the third day. She kind of, the Jews are still waiting for the Messiah.
Mhm.
The Christians, the Messiah's already been here. So that's really the only difference in
Mhm.
what's happening. So no, we don't give each other crap for any of that.
So Herman, something I don't know about you that I realize now I'm curious about. I'm a sober woman. I've been in recovery. Were drugs and alcohol ever part of your story?
No, I was always that guy when I was working in bands when I was a kid.
Uh-huh.
I
You're the driver.
saw, I saw, I saw what drugs did to people when they would come into the gig. I saw things that happened that were not responsible.
Mhm.
I saw people handling money in a weird way. I saw a lot of strange things
Mhm.
because of the influence of either alcohol or drugs. And back when I was a kid, the drug of choice really was just smoking marijuana.
I'm a
And,
marijuana addict. That's my drug of choice. That's what I had to give up. Yeah.
right, and I know a lot of people who, I mean, in my lifetime, I think
Mhm.
I've either smoked 4 hits of a joint
Oh my God.
and had 2 lines of cocaine, or either 4 lines of cocaine and 2 hits of. I can't remember. So because being a kid and seeing that, and being a Capricorn, I was
Mhm.
always the responsible one, or the one
Mhm.
that saw to it that everybody, was doing what they were supposed to do. So
I love
so
that.
I was never attracted to it. Now, don't get me wrong. I love tequila,
Oh,
and
okay.
oh my goodness. I mean, and when I'm saying I love tequila, I didn't start drinking until I started working with Tom Jones. So that, I mean, really seriously drinking.
Right.
Uh, well,
So now you're not doing sugar. So do you not do alcohol?
I do tequila now.
Okay.
Tequila, no carbs.
Mm.
Vodka, no carbs.
Really?
Uh,
Tequila doesn't have carbs? Wow. I can't have any. I gave up that right, but that's good to know.
that's okay. But I mean, no. I mean, I enjoy. I mean, I used to be a shot in the beer guy, and
Mhm.
I gotta say, if I may say this, I love my tequilas and I know my brands, and
What's your favorite
but I'm
tequila?
Don Julio and Yeho,
Mm.
my favorite. But I'm a pussy beer drinker. I know nothing about beer. I mean, I'll drink a tequila I'll have a Corona with it, and of course everybody's looking at me like a Corona, and a Corona is like 2 steps up from water. Um, so now I don't even drink that anymore, and I'll have a club soda with a shot.
My
And
favorite thing with tequila is licking the salt, taking a bite of the lemon, licking the salt, I mean, the lime and the salt. That whole thing, there's something very sensual about that whole experience.
well, that, and don't get me wrong, that's great too, but I think what everyone remembers about tequila,
Mm.
or and I mean, I remember back in the day too. Whenever I would smell or have a sip of a Cuervo Gold or that
Mhm.
whole thing, that's just no.
Yeah.
Um, but having the better stuff, I have no. I mean, so now when I go to my gigs and all of my friends, they'll say, let's buy a shot for Herman. So when we were playing the write-off room, literally, I think we would have, you know, because it was a 2-drink minimum there, and a lot
Right.
of people didn't drink. So
Right.
they were by the band, you know, I would have, you know, 8 shots of tequila, you know, lined up in the back of my drum set, you know, so.
I remember Leslie's last night was quite a tequila night that night.
We had a hoop. Yeah,
A lot of hoot there. So, all right. So the last thing I wanted to touch on before we go, I saw your Facebook today, and one of the posts that I saw, aside from your beautiful lunch, or your breakfast, actually, it was. What's the one thing we can do, Herman, to change this situation we're in right now? I saw your appeal this morning. We need to vote, right? We need to fucking vote. That's what we got to do.
We need to vote. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, you know, yes, voting is important, but also too, we got to realize that politics, regardless of what side you're on, is all shit. I mean, you know, I mean, we get deep into this thing. I mean, the reason why we're in this mess that we're in now is because everybody wanted change from Obama, you know, and as much as I, you know, loved having a black president. Yeah, no, I say black. I was going to say a person of color, you know, because of his mix and all of that. But, you know, that's sort of a bullshit way out. I'm going to say a black president because, once again, you know, the other side, or those that are against those people of color, they looked at him as a black president. They look at my kid as being a black kid, you know, and that's that talk that I always have to have with him, you know, being out in the world. But I mean, you know, we're in this mess that we're in because, you know, people didn't like what he did for 8 years, or at least for, you know, the last 2 years of his presidency. So really the whole political thing is a mess, you know, but I vote because many have died before me for that right. You know, I was born in 1960. In 1964 was the Civil Rights Act. In 1965 was the Voting Rights Act. In 1965, it was the end of Jim Crow, although we still feel the residue and the residual effect from that, just from, you know, from people, certain people. 1967, that was the end of all of the states, you know, that said that I could marry my wife or marry the nice Jewish girl that I married to. So I'm saying that this is America that we're looking at. And I was born here, and I'm having all of these things saying that I can't. They're telling me that you can't do this and you can't do that. So that's my problem. The reason why I speak up is because of that. Now, granted, that is in the past. I'm just saying now what we can all do besides voting is to be more tolerant of each other.
Okay, so here's my question. I'm asking more questions, but maybe this will be my last question. But I feel, you know, I'm older than you are, and so I marched in the late '60s on Washington, and I marched for civil rights and all of that stuff. And I feel that passive protest doesn't really do the trick all the time. Sometimes it takes aggressive action for there to be change.
Well, you know, the pendulum always has to swing hard, you know, in both directions in order to end up, you know, somewhere in the middle. With all of this, with Black Lives Matter, which I am a firm believer in, Black Lives Matter. That's not to say that the rest of the lives out there don't.
That's all.
That has nothing to do with what's happening.
Absolutely.
I am a firm believer in that, and all of the mess that's going on because of it. I think that because of this cop who put his knee on the neck of this young man, and regardless of whatever he did, whatever he was, you know, it's just not Right. And I think we're all in agreement when seeing that. I mean, we all, the people who are against Black Lives Matter, the people who are for it, we look at that and we just shake our heads and go, that's just wrong.
But how many other instances have there been since? I mean, what do we do to stop that from happening?
Well, as you were saying, there are people who are tearing down buildings and burning up things, and not saying that, I believe in protests. I do believe in protests. When it comes to rioting, I don't believe that we should, tear down things. Now, having said that, or burn down things, and not that all protesters are the ones that are doing that, but I will say this: if it catches or if it gets the attention of people, if it's maybe that will lead us down a certain way. Now, yes, certain things have happened since Floyd's death, and not as many buildings are being burned down, and now things seems to be calm, although the protesting is still going on. But I think from time to time you're going to have to slap some people around in order to get the point across.
I think so.
And I'm not saying I'm trying to be that guy who's saying violence is the answer, but once again, in order to get some people's attention, things
don't change with us all sitting around going, "Why don't we try this?"
Right.
Won't change that.
And I mean, and I try to. I mean, I say I'm a member of certain organizations. I know people that are in organizations that Black Lives Matter, people who have been associated with, say, the Panthers, and the good side of all of that, I believe in. I mean, all of that, I'm a strong advocate of. I just think that, if we're tolerant of each other, and I do try and tell people who, the people, my friends who want to do certain things, and I'm saying, no, that's not the way. Let's talk to people first. Let's have an understanding. So,
So
and
Herman,
then, I don't know, I'll continue pissing people off on the Facebook.
well, okay, try not to get your ass kicked off, because we need, every time Lee got back on for like 2 days and they booted him off again. And we need your voices on there. So we need you not to get booted off.
And the thing that's weird, when I read Leland's stuff, it doesn't seem like any, I mean, I think I write stuff that's more.
So do I.
Kicked off before he would.
They're just gunning for him. They just have a thing, and they're just gunning for him. So Herman, how can we support you? How can we support you through this time when you're not out there playing and making your living? How can we support you?
Well, I would say, go to my peanut brittle site. I make, Little Herman's peanut brittle.
I have never had your peanut brittle, and everybody, Liberty DeVito came on here, and first thing he said was, "Get some peanut brittle."
You know what? I will say, because of the COVID virus, the kitchen is closed, because it is a homegrown, my hands are on it. I'm making things happen. It's my kitchen. And so I just don't feel comfortable, during these times. But when it does, matter of fact, I have like a handful of orders that I've yet to get out because I had to close the kitchen. I will do it. You're top on the list to get a bag of it, because as I always, I used to say back in the old days, the first bag's free, and
that's
and
how
after
they
that,
got me. That's how they got me. So how?
But it'll be the kitchen will be back up soon.
Okay. So. And how can we support the music? Best way to support the music?
Yeah, my website. I mean, that's the best way. Like I said, it is an old record, but not everyone, not everyone's heard it yet. But that is the best way. All right, there you go. That's the best way. And it is a good record. If you don't think about
great record,
like I say, it's just funny. The funk people want to hear the funk stuff. The rock people want to hear that, and it's just. If you just go in with an open mind, it's just good.
Well, it's a great fusion of all of that. You have all of that going on the record. So we're going to
even the spoken word, So So,
and you have great song titles.
thank you very much.
The Trunk in the Trunk. But we're going to go out with Hold On You, which has Teresa James singing backup. And is there any story to this song? Is there anything we should know about it before I play it?
You know what? This was the last song that was on the record, and I wrote it as an afterthought. I thought I was done with everything, and literally, I told Ned Albright that I had an idea, and I went in and played the groove. I took a snare drum, a hi-hat, and a kick drum, and played the groove, and that's what we recorded. And then, you know, I called in my friends, you know, Dean Parks and Brian and, you know, Monroney. And then also, too, my good buddy, Charlie Drayton played bass on it. As a matter of fact, you know, on a lot of the stuff, you know, I had Charlie Drayton, I had Ivan Neville, Everett Harp, you know, Lee Thornburg, you know, and all. But I called my friend in Charlie Drayton to play bass on it, and which is my favorite part of that song. And then I said, you know, it'd be great if I had Teresa on it. And I was trying to think of her singing a verse or something, you know. But later on had the idea if she would just do the ad-libs and do kind of the ghosting of what I was doing. And she came in and knew exactly what to do, did everything in one take, and said, you know, and even, you know, she said, give me a separate track, and she did her work there, and she nailed it, you know. So I mean, I love her, you know. The thing I do feel bad about, Terry Wilson came in with his bass, and, you know, I had already promised the track to Charlie Drayton, and so he was going to play something on it, but did not get an opportunity to. So the next record, I'm going to have Terry.
There you go. Well, there's a reason right there to start the next record, to do the next record.
There you go.
Herman, thank you so much for doing this. You were worth waiting for.
You know what? Thank you for waiting for me. I know that the Wednesdays was always kind of hard because every other Wednesday I was playing with Teresa at the write-off room, and the other Wednesdays I was doing, you know, the church gig. So it was difficult for us to make this happen. But thank you, and I love you.
I love you too, and it was really fun. I used to leave my show and come run out there to see you guys at the write-off room, because what a great time that was. And they closed the write-off room, but I've heard they're going to open somewhere else. So I look forward.
They are, and I pray that we all get a place to perform in and a place for everyone to come to and have a good time, and that this mess is over soon.
I hope so too, and I wish you all all wonderful things, and happy ketoing. I'll be watching your food and mimicking you. So we're gonna go out with "Hold On You." I'm gonna turn it on and turn on the stereo here. Get it?
Oh yeah.
All right, let's go. It has to announce.
My mother told me a thing or two. She said, something's gonna have a hold on you. Everybody's got a point of view, son. Something's gonna have a hold on you. Hold on you, hold on you. Something's gonna have a hold on you. Hold on you, hold on you. Something's gonna have a hold on you.
Teresa.
I know, right?
One thing is certain, and two things for sure. Something's gonna have a hold on you. She said, be careful, son, cause you reap what you sow. And something's gonna have a hold on you. Hold on you, hold on you. And something's gonna have a hold on you. Hold on you, hold on you. And something's gonna have a hold on you.
under there, right?
Yeah. Long story about that, but that's Karen Graves under there.
Hold on, you, hold on, you. Something's gonna have a hold on you. Hold on, you, hold on, you. Something's gonna have a hold on you. Landing in the city without a cause something's gonna have a hold on you. Nothing in my pocket but some twos and fews, and something's gonna have a hold on you. Don't worry, mama, you taught me well. Something's gonna have a hold on you. There's gotta be a heaven, 'cause I know there's a hell. Something's gonna have a hold on you. Hold on you, hold on you. Something's gonna have a hold on you. Hold on you, hold on you. Something's gonna have a hold on you. Hold on you.
Oh, I didn't mean to do this. All right, I'm gonna fade us out so I can say goodbye. But oh, look what I'm doing. I'm messing this up. So it's Home at Last. You can get this on Herman's website, and I'm going to give everybody the link. Thank you so much again, Herman. It's been such a pleasure. I so adore you. I love your playing. I love your humanity, and it's been a treat.
Thank you, dear. Thank you. You're wonderful. I love you. And thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. Goodbye, everybody. See you next week with Liberty DeVito.
Liberty!